Yes, again, Trinidad and Tobago, across the world, wherever you are. This morning, I have the distinct privilege to introduce to you a good friend of mine, a good friend who have excelled and have made me so proud that I just having her here, I feel privileged, and I know you will feel that way as soon as she's through. Before I said, I want to thank two young ladies who have been making this thing happen for me. One is Sister Ria Sampson. Sister Ria Sampson has been doing my artwork for me, and somebody asked me, who are doing your artwork? And she has been steady with it, and she has, in fact, it's Ria who have given me all the ideas that I came up with so far. Also, Sister Glenda Gonzalez, who is working out there with my YouTube account and Facebook account and all different accounts. And Glenda is a statistic person. So we don't agree, but we love each other, and that's the most important thing to keep this thing going. And she has been doing human work to make sure this happens. So Dr. Kathy and Kathy, welcome to Victorious Lifestyle. Before I go on, Dr. Hernandez, I want to say welcome to Victorious Lifestyle. Dr. Hernandez, she is a professor and she's chair of the PhD and chair PhD in organizational leadership at Eastern University in Pennsylvania. Now, Dr. Kathian is an author, a professor, a leadership and expert. She was born and raised in Trinidad and Tobago, and she has many years of experience as a scholar and practitioner at various academic levels in the Caribbean and in the United States. Currently, she is a professor in the College of Business and Leadership and chair of the PhD program in organizational leadership at Eastern University in Pennsylvania. She's also the founder of Value What Matters, a life leadership brand. And this is what have drawn me to asking Dr. Hernandez to be here with us this morning. Her published work crosses genres and appears in literary journals, peer reviews, journals, and church-related publications like Adventist Review 2012. She has also authored several books, chapters, articles, and books. However, she views her most recent publication, Waiting by the Brook, 7 Steps to Deeper Intimacy with God, along with the guided journal as the books she was born to write at the intersection of her faith and scholarship. Dr. Hernandez is also an ordained elder. She's married to Mark Avery, and they have 2 beautiful daughters, Alisa and Amria Avery. Together, the family leads a House in the Woods ministry as an extension of their faith and service. So I said all I could say. Dr. Hernandez, before we start, you want to say anything before I begin my interrogation?
I think I'm more excited than you to be here. It is truly a pleasure and to join in virtually with my Trini peeps. Good to see you, Pastor Brown. And I hope my sister is listening and my brother in Sangre Grande, where I am from, and all the people who I hold dear to my heart in Trinidad. It's a pleasure to be here.
Great. And I want to say I've gotten a lot of reviews. People have been texting me and saying I'm bringing on these sort of people and how they are getting in touch with Kathian. I said, Kathian is there. Kathian is publishing. She have an active ministry, so it wasn't hard for me to do it. And I'm happy I did it. All right. I just want to start by what was in your bio there, speaking about waiting by the brook. You said to me you are speaking about waiting on God, but then the title of that book that seemed to be your favorite is Waiting by the Brook. Why this title? What brook you're talking about? There are no brook in Trinidad. Go ahead.
We have rivers. We go by the river, right? So first I would say that I did not plan to write this book. I wrote this book during COVID, and actually I was working on a book for which I have a publisher, as part of my profession, an academic book. But when I sat down to write a sermon that I had preached called Waiting, it just came to mind. And I really felt as though the Spirit was saying to me, you need to write about this. And so I changed course. And the truth is that this book is really for me. If you're a preacher, you're in ministry, I think God often gives us the message for ourselves through us to others. And so I had been going through a series of waiting experiences. And if you're listening, listeners, if you've lived a little, I'm sure you've had a lot of experiences. And for some reason, the experience of the prophet Elijah really resonated with me. Because the thing about Elijah is that Elijah had prayed and asked God to give a drought in the land so that the children of Israel would return to him. And God had answered his prayers. And there he went and he told King Ahab, there'll be no rain. And so for 3 years, and then so he had done what he was supposed to do. And then God said to him, okay, you go sit down by this brook and wait. Wait until I tell you what to do next. And sometimes
so you guys link brook and waiting as sort of interchangeably as far as your thought patterns were.
Well, when I think about Elijah by the brook, sometimes we tend to glamorize the scriptures, but this was a dark and desolate place. There was nobody there. The brook was about to dry up. He had nothing to eat except what God would send for him. So for me, the brook became a metaphor for when we face difficulty, when we feel uncertain in our lives, when we are moving in accordance with God's will for our life. And yet he says to us, you wait. Oh. And truly, Pastor Brown, I could have called it waiting in Midian, Moses. I could have called it waiting in prison, Joseph. I could have called it waiting for a child, Hannah. I could have called it 12 years and waiting, the woman with the issue of blood. And so what my experience has been is that waiting is a central theme in our lives as Christian. And the brook for me is a metaphor for that season of uncertainty, of hardship, where we don't know what God is going to call us to do next.
Powerful stuff. But give us some key insight that we can get when I ask you to promote the book sometime during this morning. I will ask you to do that. But give me some key insight on this book.
Well, I think, first of all, I would say, I'm a psychologist. So I think one of the things that I would say about myself, and I think most of us, we do not like to wait, especially in our society. We want it and we want it now. And also, our view of what waiting means is often shaped by our experiences, our early childhood experiences, or difficulties we've had waiting for someone or something, especially if it relates to parents or people who are close to us. And as we wait, we may feel abandoned or rejected or not heard. And so some of those emotions come in as we relate to God, and we're praying to be married. We're praying to get out of an abusive relationship. We're praying for our children to return to the faith, whatever it is. And so we might feel as though God is not present and he's not hearing and answering us. And so one of the first things that is involved is for us to really, by the power of the Holy Spirit, begin to change our mindset and our thinking about what it means to wait in a culture that tells us go, go, go. And so one of the first insights that came to me is that we need to understand the difference between waiting on and waiting with. And I'm an English major, right?
Yes.
So those two words are powerful. Waiting on and waiting with. In Psalm 34, verse 18, the psalmist says, God is close to the brokenhearted. And so if we can change the mindset, we need to do both to recognize that God is present with us and we are waiting with him. It changes everything. And so when I was in Trinidad, I remember growing up, we call them field trips here, but in Trinidad, we call them outings. I remember as a child getting ready for school, and we're going to an outing. And sometimes the bus would be late, but you are so excited and you're so involved with everybody you're waiting with. You're talking about what your mother packed for you in your lunch and where you're going. And the time goes slowly because you are waiting with friends. And so when I think about that, I think of the waiting period as a gift, as an opportunity to spend time with God in a way that we can talk to him when we're going through these difficulties that we often don't. We lose the pretense and we can go into a deeper level of intimacy with God when we recognize that we are waiting with him through our seasons.
You mentioned 2 points. Doc, what was the other point you were speaking about?
So thank you for that. So I think one of the other things is that far from being a period of inaction where we're just here waiting on God, the waiting period is actually one of the most active period of the Christian experience. As I said before,
you said wait, but the second point, you said the waiting period is the most active?
One of the most active period of the Christian experience, yes.
Okay, so you're speaking to a theologian here, so let me hear how you're going to teach me.
Right. So what I mean by that is, so there is this misconception that when we are waiting, all we should do is just sit there and twiddle our thumbs and God is going to do everything for us. And when I read my scripture and I look at the experience, I don't see that. I see a God who invites us to collaborate with him in the solutions to problem for which he doesn't even need our help in the first place. But God seems to delight in that because, you know, Pastor Brown, the thing is, we serve such an amazing God. He doesn't want us to be robots. If every time I ask God, I want this, God gave it to me, God gave it to me. The relationship is not active. It's not interactive. And so let me give you for instance, if you look at the experience of Jacob, when Jacob wanted to leave his abusive uncle Laban, God gave him very specific instructions about what to do so that the offspring of the flock would turn out striped or spotted or speckled. God didn't need him to do all of that. God could have done it, right? So that's just an example of I think the waiting period is a time when God, if we use it rightly, we realize it's an active period in which we can really come to God and he can prepare us for the next phase of our journey. And so I also use the example of Joseph in prison. What was Joseph doing? We are told that he worked so well, that God was with him, that the warden appointed him to a leadership position. Ellen G. White in the book Patriarchs and Prophets, she says that God was preparing him for leadership positions that he would occupy when he became second in command, right? And so all waiting periods, rightly used and understood, can prepare us for ministry and service in a way that seasons of ease and abundance cannot. I am confident that when Joseph was set to his position, he had an approach to justice. He had an approach to fairness that was born out of his experiences in prison because he was being prepared for what would come next.
How do you know this waiting is not as Bob Marley say, I don't want to wait in vain? How do you know that this waiting will climax in something that God will do, and you are not going through crucibles and pain that will take you all the way to your grave?
So that's a very powerful question. I tell people, I think if we think that I would love to say that as you wait on God and as you pray, God is going to give you the desires of your heart. That's not the case. We cannot understand and know. We do not see with the divine eye that God, the path that God has in store for us. And so sometimes we might think we're going to go this way, but God takes us another way. But that's what faith is. We step forward and God leads the way. The other thing about waiting in vain, To me, the gift is in the waiting. I want to say that again. The gift is in the waiting. So if we are focused on what we want to get, we miss the point entirely. We run the risk of abusing this time of waiting. And what are the gifts? Deeper intimacy with God.
Yeah.
And I believe that it's in the waiting that we really get to practice spiritual disciplines. What are spiritual disciplines? Spiritual disciplines are those practices of our faith. They are our muscle builders as Christian. When you are going through something, you pray in a way like you've never prayed before. Yeah. You intercede like you've never interceded before. So intimacy with God, spiritual transformation. And then the last one is meaningful service. My ministry that I am doing now is born out of my waiting seasons. And the truth is, I'm still waiting.
Doc, before I go on to actually the next question, I want you to expand on your ministry, this value matters thing. I want you to expand on that first.
Yeah. Okay. So, like you mentioned, I am an ordained elder, and I have served in the church, one of my churches here in Philadelphia. I think what I realized, though, especially during COVID and beyond, because my husband and I had founded this in 2009, is that ministry is changing. We have different tools before us. And so we need to go where the people are. And some of them are not going to walk into the church building. And so what I thought about was, how can I share the good news? Can I share the crib note about Christianity on these internet streets? This is what these internet streets. And as I have thought about my faith, and I have studied the Bible, and you're a theologian, I'm not a theologian. I think it comes down to one central.
You're not. Give me a break. Go ahead.
One central message. What do Christians do? Christians love. Mm-hmm. Christians love. And Jesus said there are 3 loves that we need to cultivate: love of God, love of self, and love of others. And we need to love ourselves, people, because if we don't love ourselves, love others as we love ourselves, it works together. And so sometimes I feel very frustrated with myself, and I just like, oh, you did that again, you're a mess or whatever, right? But then I need to forgive myself, because I need to go and extend the same forgiveness to my daughter who messed up, right? So Value What Matters is my ministry, where I am trying to take the gospel on these internet streets with one central message: relationships matter, and we need to value relationships and cultivate meaningful relationship with God, with ourselves, and with others.
Okay, thank you. Now, if there's one takeaway that you want people to get from your book, what would that be?
I would say that
how many pages the book is? How many pages we're talking about?
178. And actually, I would ask people to pray for me, because I have a full-time job, and I really would like to do I would like to do it on audio, because I know a lot of people aren't really reading as much. I actually listen to a lot more books than I actually read. So I would like to put it on audio, and that's going to take a time commitment, because I have a full-time job. Okay. But anyway, one takeaway is, I wrote this book to encourage people. I wrote this book to be transparent. I think sometimes, especially when we've been in the faith for a long time, we get too holy and we don't talk honestly about sometimes a watery kind of love for God, when he seems to be silent, when it seems as though he's not hearing our prayers. And so my encouragement to you is that waiting, the sum total of our walk with God, is to learn to live in this space of waiting on and with God. And he has gifts that he wants to give us in this space. It's a hard thing, but it's not a bad thing. In fact, it's a good thing. And the waiting period it's a rescuing spot. It's a rejuvenating spot. As Isaiah says, they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. So be encouraged as you face your book experience and continue to wait on God.
How do I get this book, Doctor?
The book is available on Amazon. It's also available on my website, Value What Matters. But I also, and I wanted to share this, I have a devotional plan, a 10-day devotional plan based on my book that's freely available on the Bible app. It was called YouVersion. You can get it from the App Store. And if you're having difficulty, just email me, Dr. H at drh@valuewhatmatters.com, and I'll be happy to show you how to get that devotional plan. So get something. I really believe that it will be a blessing to you.
Is it don't take my question in any negative. Is it a gender-based book? Is it a book for all people? I know what I'm seeing. I'm asking that because I'm seeing a new group of writers, female writers, and the literature tend to go towards female issues, women issues. And so is this book one of those, or this book I can read it and feel just as satisfied as a woman would read it and feel satisfied?
Oh, I appreciate that question. Well, I would say, first of all, my husband was my chief proofreader and editor, and he really gave me some sound advice. But the thing about writing, Pastor Brown, is that you really have to have an audience in mind. And so because I am a woman, I think, of course, I am going to talk in a woman voice and based on my experiences. But if you've listened to me and you've benefited, this is the same voice. I'm the same person. I keep it real. And so I think this book can be a benefit to anyone who wants to know more about waiting on God.
But it is, while it might be a benefit to everyone and anyone, it is stated in such a way that women will find great solace. That's what you're saying?
I'm saying that I am writing based on my perspective as a woman. But you know what's interesting enough, when I was writing it, I got a lot of feedback, and somebody said, "You keep drawing on the experiences of men in the Bible, but that's how the Bible is." So I speak about the experience of Joseph, I speak the experience of David, about the experience of Jacob, on the experience of Paul, but I also weave in my own experiences in there, as well as the experience of Hannah and the experience of the woman with the issue of blood. So there's something there because it's strongly based on biblical narratives and my own waiting experiences.
Oh, so the book is really the struggles and the victories of Bible characters. That's what I'm thinking. Or is it just a free-flowing production where Dr. Kathleen Hernandez just writing freely about life, and what is it?
The book is about, so like I said, I tell people right off, if you're looking for an exposition on the life of Elijah, look elsewhere. The book is not about the prophet Elijah per se. It's about waiting experience, periods of uncertainty where it seems as though God has us in a holding pattern. And to elaborate on that, I draw on my own experience, but I also draw on the experiences of so many biblical characters who were held in waiting patterns. In using those examples, I elaborate on 7 steps that we can go through to make the most of these waiting experiences. So it's a mix of everything. And I will tell you this, and I say this not boastfully, I have written many things. And some of my colleagues don't even understand why I would write this because it's so outside of my realm. But let me tell you, I've been writing this book since I was in my 20s, but I didn't have the life experience to write it meaningfully. And of everything I've written, I am most satisfied that I have done what God has placed on my heart to do. I was at Caribbean Union College, so I'm not sure if you're thinking about me, but I didn't go to Brazil. I'm open for the invitation though. So if that's anyway in the future. So important questions here about waiting on God and expecting what we expect and what God's will is. And so, like Pastor Brown alluded to earlier, I don't pretend to understand the will of God. I don't pretend to be an expert on prayer and how God works. And what I've come to in my own understanding is that I think, especially because of all the books I've read, I have the most books on my shelf on prayer and trying to understand how it works and all of that. And what I've come to accept is that perhaps we are not supposed to understand prayer so much as we are to experience it. And it is in the experience and the evidences that we know that it works, because we're trying to understand with our finite mind a divine God and presence. And so when we live in the space of waiting on and with God, I think the most useful way we can spend that time is to begin to enter into a conversation with God in which we begin to discern and understand his will for us. And to get there, it often involves a wrestling with God, as Jacob did, wrestling with God until we understand. So when we present ourselves to God with a question or with a request, that is just the beginning of the conversation. It is in the space of waiting that Paul found his answer, that he was going to have to live with this. He was going to have to live with this. And that was okay, because God is divine and he's God. And we don't often know what we need or what is best for us. And so that's how I view that.
The issue of pain, I'm saying that pain, sometimes people are in all this pain that reading becomes very difficult. How you intend to captivate, because we are, as you rightly said, we are not in the reading generation. We are not. So how do you perceive, or what is your plan to make this book a book that people need to go out and get? They need it, yes, but they don't know they need it. They don't know the answers are there. How do you go about doing that?
Right. So thank you for saying that they need the book.
Yeah, they need it.
I approach this kind of ministry with all humility. I don't think this book is for everybody. And I believe when as I was writing the book, my prayer was that this book would find people who need it. But, we have certain responsibilities as Christians. First, I'm talking to Christians, right? One of the disciplines of our faith is reading the Bible. There's no apology. There's no way around it. If you're an athlete, you need to train, you need to run. One of our disciplines is reading the Bible. So even if you're not reading my book, one of our disciplines is reading the Bible, praying, talking with God. And I believe it's a trick of the devil that he keeps from us the very thing we need that will deal with and heal our pain. And so to me right now, there, you could listen to it on YouVersion. If you don't want to get my book, you could listen to the Bible. You could get certain Psalms, as the devotional reader did this morning, that will speak to your pain, that will heal your heart. I'd be happy to talk with you, to speak with you, to pray with you, right? But I do know, and I've been periods of my life where sometimes you can't even talk to God because you feel so hurt and so discouraged. What I have done in times like these, sometimes I just pray one line read one line of a Psalm every day. The Lord is my shepherd. I have everything I need. The Lord is my shepherd.
Why not? Why it wasn't a book on psychology, a book on some literature? Why it had to be a book on religion, a book on devotion, a book on lifestyle in Jesus? Why it had to be that?
Well, and that's a good question. That's a very good question, because I told you I never planned to write this book. I actually have a book that I'm writing, a psychological book. And I put that aside because I strongly felt as though this is what God was leading me to write. A book about waiting on God. And I have gotten so many responses from people I don't even know that this book speaks to their heart, and it really encouraged them to wait on God. And so for me, the gospel, the good news for us as Christians is what God has done in our own lives. This is what Matthew, Mark, and Luke did. And in our age, the gospel, the good news for Kathy Ann is my story, my testimony. You began so glowingly about all the things I had accomplished. Nothing but the grace of God. And so if I don't speak and share my experiences and from my perspective about what it is like to wait on God and know that He will indeed deliver, not necessarily according to how we want, I would have missed the mark. And so this is a book that I had to write. I just had to write it.
So it's part of your contribution to, life of humanity, I should say that. It's part of your contribution to humanity.
Yes, and also I think a legacy I really wanted to leave for my daughters, that they would know, they would grow up to be strong women of faith who really knew what it is to wait on and with God.
So when I speak about Dr. Kathy Ann Hernandez, I must be seeing a multifaceted person. I cannot put you in a silo of this is an English person, this is a psychologist, or this is a theologian. How do you want that? I should ask. How do you want me to see you, Dr. Kathy Ann Hernandez?
Wow. It's interesting because you don't think about how you want people to see you per se.
But you are branded. You are branded as a human being. You are branded. People, when your name jumps somewhere, people put immediately, they put something to that person. Is this a scholar? Is this a theologian? Is this a researcher? Is this it jumps? You think about anybody you want to think about now, and you reckon as soon as you they come to your mind, immediately something is attached to them. You say Barack Obama, and immediately something is attached to that. You say Michelle Obama, immediately I saw Michelle behind you there. It's immediately something's attached to that. So when we say Kathy Ann Hernandez, what do you think should be attached to that?
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned that, because I really I admire the perspective on this by T.D. Jakes, because he is so many things. And I think we do have this tendency to try to put people in boxes. Mm-hmm. He's an entrepreneur, he's a preacher, he's an author, so I see myself fundamentally at the core, and I've just recently thought about this. I am a storyteller. I really believe in the power of stories to change and transform lives. And it came to me very early, sitting on the veranda of my grandmother's hut in Matura, and she would tell us stories. But above all, I want to be seen as an authentic person who is really trying to pour herself out. I don't want to leave anything on the table when it comes time to die. I want to use every last little gift I have in service to God and to others.
Sister Kathy Ann, this was a very amazing, a very beautiful morning for me. I truly wish you all the success. Just want to say the name of the book again, to call the website and where it can be found. You say it for yourself, call the name of the book, your website, where you can find. Let's do your internal ad right now.
Well, thank you so much for having me. The book is called Waiting by the Brook, and you can find out more at Value What Matters, or you can reach out to me at drh at valuewhatmatters.com.
Friends who have been listening this morning, you have been listening to Dr. Kathy Ann Hernandez, who is a professor at Eastern Michigan, Eastern what? I forgot the
University.
university. Eastern University out there in Pennsylvania. It has been an intriguing morning. I know you are feeling a little better. I want you to go with this, that when she said, do not be hard on yourself, forgive yourself. Because God, you expect God to forgive you, you forgive yourself so you can forgive others. That stayed with me because sometimes we are hard on ourselves, we are hard on our failures and our shortcomings. And this morning, Kathy stopped by to tell us, don't do that. And for those who have been listening, who have my on WhatsApp, or you can go to our YouTube page and you have all the information you would like to have regarding the program. And until next week, I want to say, Alex, thank you for being with us this morning. Thank you for your candor in all things. And may God bless you and your family. And
thank you very much, Pastor. Appreciate that very much.
Yeah, Katian, until we meet again, until we see again, we'll talk. May God bless you and your family. And in all things, I wish you much success.
Blessings to you too. Bye-bye. Take care.